had that experience where something happens that's very stressful, then the stressor is resolved, right? The car didn't hit you, it didn't kill you, thank goodness, didn't run over your leg, didn't break your leg, thank goodness. But you turn to your friend, you're like, oh my goodness, that was a close call. And guess what? About 5-10 minutes later, you're still kind of stressed about it. Something stressful happened. Something real, as we say, happened. And it's hard to just kind of get back to baseline again. And that's because that wave of cortisol comes on a little bit later and it lasts longer. It has a much longer half-life than does adrenaline or norepinephrine. So the stress response has this fast aspect to it that's generated through the HPA axis and through, again, release of hormones such as norepinephrine in the brain. Those two things happen in parallel. By the way, that happens because adrenaline is released from the adrenals very quickly to cause changes in the body, but adrenaline can't cross the blood-brain barrier. And when you need a very fast reaction in order to deal with a stressor, you can't really wait for that hormone to cross from the bloodstream into the brain. So you release norepinephrine from a site in the brain very quickly as well, in parallel with that release of adrenaline. So those two things happen in parallel. Boom, you deal with the stressor. Hopefully that stressor is resolved, didn't injure you or worse, but then that wave of synthesis and
all clear.
release of cortisol occurs, blood glucose is elevated, and so it takes a while for stress to come down again. All of that is mediated through the HPA, hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, as is the generation of that 24-hour rhythm in cortisol, where cortisol slowly rises and then goes back down into the evening and nighttime and so on. Okay? Now, that's the first way that cortisol is synthesized and released. But there's a second way that turns out to be very important, and it involves a structure called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, or SCN. The suprachiasmatic nucleus is your brain's central circadian pacemaker. It's the set of neurons, also above the roof of your mouth, also in the hypothalamus, that basically orchestrates all the activities of all the organs and cells in your body like an orchestra conductor. Makes sure that your gut cells are active at a certain time, that you're hungry at certain times, you're not hungry at others. Regulates pretty much everything, including cortisol. And the SCN can control the HPA axis when it's active, when it's less active, by virtue of connections that run through, if you really want to know the names for you aficionados, through the dorsomedial hypothalamus and then to the paraventricular nucleus. Okay, that's all fine and good. It just means that the HPA axis is subject to immediate control over stressors or other things that require attention. Again, it doesn't have to be stress, it could be positive. As well, the HPA axis is under the control of the SCN, circadian timing, which is what generates that high in the morning, low in the afternoon and evening rhythm. All of that subject to negative feedback. Controls itself, making sure levels don't get too high, too low, or too low. But there's a second pathway, a parallel pathway as we call it, that is separate from the HPA control over the synthesis and release of cortisol. And this one originates also in the SCN, suprachiasmatic nucleus, and is relayed through a couple of different synapses, a couple of different junctions, and eventually runs through a nerve pathway that for you aficionados is called the splanchnic nerve. A cool name, splanchnic nerve, that can cause the release of cortisol, or I should say the synthesis and release of cortisol, in response to times when you want cortisol to be especially high for a while. Okay, so this is different than the requirement for stress. You might think, we want cortisol to be high in response to stressors. No, your brain and body are really smart. They're really, really smart. When you encounter a stressor, you deploy just as much cortisol as your body thinks you might need in order to resolve that stressor, and probably not a whole lot more. And because cortisol lasts a while, as we just discussed, it gives you an opportunity to have enough brain energy, bodily energy to resolve that stressor. But your brain and body sort of know at a biological level that you don't want cortisol too high for too long. That's why you have the negative feedback loop. However, there's a beautiful mechanism, which is this second parallel pathway from the SCN, that allows you to control the amount of cortisol that you release and boost it even further for a long period of time. Now, when would you want that to occur? Why would I want that to occur? Maybe in response to a chronic stressor, a very long stressor. Actually, you wouldn't want that to happen, because if cortisol is elevated for too long at the wrong times of day or night, you run into all sorts of issues related to immune system suppression, to dysregulation of metabolic function. And this is where we start to hear about some of the more common negative aspects of chronically elevated cortisol, like accumulation of body fat around the midsection, the so-called moon face. literally the rounding of the face and the accumulation of fat in the face. There's usually an accompanying loss of fat in the neck and accumulation of fat around the belly. Nobody wants this, right? So things like hyperpigmentation and things like that. All right? But there is a time of day when everyone would benefit from having higher levels of cortisol, not just for a few moments or minutes, but for several hours. And that's the first hour or two, or 2.5 or 3 after waking. So while there's this 24-hour rhythm in cortisol, where cortisol is elevated in the morning, there's this unique opportunity of about an hour to 2 hours, maybe 3, immediately after waking, when your SCN can activate this parallel pathway down to your adrenals to cause the release of more cortisol and elevate your morning energy, alertness, mood, and so on. Now, you might be saying, wait, this is kind of confusing. The SCN controls the 24-hour rhythm, but it's also controlling the faster release of cortisol during this kind of one unique window immediately after waking. Kind of confusing, right? The SCN's involved in both things. Well, the SCN has access to one particular feature of your external world, of your environment, that no other structure in the hypothalamus has access to. And that's the presence or absence of light. The retina, the light-sensing tissue at the back of your eye, contains a bunch of different neurons that sense light, convert it into electrical signals, and hand those electrical signals off to a certain class of cells called the retinal ganglion cells. Retinal ganglion cells project into the brain to allow you to see things, color, shapes, motion, etc. However, there's a specialized subset of those retinal ganglion cells, called the intrinsically photosensitive melanopsin retinal ganglion cells, that respond in particular to very bright light, or more accurately, to transitions between dimmer environments and brighter environments that last a long period of time. Like, for instance, when you go from your eyes closed in sleep to your eyes opening when awake. Those neurons project directly to the suprachiasmatic nucleus. In other words, your SCN has unique access to information about when the levels of overall luminance in your environment change dramatically, such as upon waking. So here's where I'm going to suggest a protocol. And you've heard this protocol before, I know. The protocol is to get bright light, ideally from sunlight, into your eyes within the first hour of waking, ideally within the first 30 minutes. Ideally, it's from sunlight, so you would go outside, take your sunglasses off, eyeglasses and contacts are fine, even if they have UV protection in. Look in the direction of the sun. Blink as needed to protect your eyes. Yes, you can do this on cloudy days. In fact, it's more important to do on cloudy days, because cloudy days tend to be dimmer overall. And this is a unique opportunity to boost your cortisol levels in that first hour of the day. If you don't have access to sunlight, stay down. Travel, you live in a cave, time of year, weather, whatever, you could use a 10,000 lux artificial light. These are available online for usually about $100 or so. These are very useful tools. Some of them are portable. If you're going to do that, I still highly recommend that you get outside and get some sunlight in your eyes as soon as you can once the sun is out. But for you very early risers that wake up before the sun is out, this is so, so key. And I know I've been talking about this for years on this podcast and elsewhere. And I know I've just been, hitting this like banging on the same drum over and over again. But that additional surge in cortisol that can occur only in that first 1 to say 2 or 3 hours of the day, that's a very special time. Because it's not just about the elevated mood, focus, and alertness that you're going to achieve during that time by virtue of getting bright light in your eyes. It's also the case, please hear this, I want to highlight, bold, underline this for you. It's also the case that the higher that first peak in cortisol is early in the day, the better you're setting yourself up for low levels of cortisol later in the evening and at night, which will allow you to fall asleep easy, to stay asleep easy. And now you know why. The reason why is that negative feedback regulation of cortisol. Think about it. If cortisol gets too high, the system shuts down the release of more cortisol. And what you've done by viewing bright light as soon as possible after waking is to amplify your levels of cortisol, which then are going to trigger that negative feedback loop and going to cause cortisol to gradually decline from the late morning, perhaps starting around 10 a.m., 11, noon, depending on when you woke up, of course. Dropping into the afternoon. So you have plenty of energy into your early afternoon, late afternoon, but by evening and nighttime, your cortisol levels are low. I'd like to take a quick break and acknowledge our sponsor, AG1.
Copy that.
AG1 is a vitamin mineral probiotic drink that also includes prebiotics and adaptogens. As somebody who's been involved in research science for almost 3 decades
to a better position.
For equally as long, I'm constantly looking for the best tools to improve my mental health, physical health, and performance. I discovered AG1 back in 2012, long before I ever had a podcast, and I've been taking it every day since. I find it improves all aspects of my health, my energy, my focus, and I simply feel much better when I take it. AG1 uses the highest quality ingredients in the right combinations, and they're constantly improving their formulas without increasing the cost. In fact, AG1 just launched their latest formula upgrade. This next-gen formula is based on exciting new research on the effects of probiotics on the gut microbiome, and it now includes several clinically studied probiotic strains shown to support both digestive health and immune system health, as well as to improve bowel regularity and to reduce omega calories of a snack, which makes it easy to hit my often suffer from what's called seasonal affective disorder. The protocol I just described is exactly the same protocol that they have used successfully to offset seasonal depression. Now, I realize that most of you listening to this don't live in areas of the world which get poles, so no doubt you get more sunlight available to you during the winter than you do if you were to, say, live in Scandinavia or down at the South Pole. However, these days, most people are not taking advantage of those early hours of the day to get outside and get bright light from sunlight or from a 10,000 lux artificial source. In fact, most people just look at their phone or flip on a few indoor artificial lights, and that is not going to be sufficient to boost your cortisol levels the way you need to in order to achieve the kind of elevation in mood, focus, and alertness, and that can offset things like not just seasonal depression, but mild depression, malaise, lack of daytime energy, and on. So this thing about viewing bright light early in the morning, it's a real thing from the standpoint of the mechanism is understood, the ideal timing is understood, the magnitude of the impact on cortisol is very significant. These are big effects, and it's clinically significant with respect to mood, meaning you're going to feel more energized, you're going to feel better. Okay, so now that you understand that getting your cortisol high upon waking is the right thing to do, what you want. Let's talk about some of the other things you can do besides viewing bright light in order to increase your morning cortisol. But keep in the back of your mind that viewing bright light is the foundation. Okay, so you wake up in the morning, and as quickly as you can, you get bright light into your eyes. What else should you do to boost your cortisol? Well, there are a number of things that you can do and that you should do every single day. Most of them are pretty easy, and many of them can be combined. One of those is hydration. Now, of all the protocols in the realm of mental health, physical health, and performance, I think the most underrated one, believe it or not, is hydration. When you look at the literature on hydration and the effects of even mild dehydration, what you find is that cognitive function, physical function, basically cellular function and organ function generally, all suffer when you're even mildly dehydrated. So it's very important that you hydrate first thing in the morning. For me, that's 16 to 32 ounces of water with some electrolytes in it. For you, it might just be water, whatever. The interesting thing is that one of the major effects of proper hydration is to increase levels of alertness, and the way it does it is by acting on the adrenals, both epinephrine, adrenaline, and cortisol release. And we're not talking about big spikes in cortisol related to drinking water. We're talking about modest increases in the levels of pulsatile, as it's called, release of cortisol due to hydration. So hydrating first thing in the morning, also a terrific idea. You can do this while you get your bright light outside or while you get your bright light from a 10,000 lux artificial source. Hydrate first thing in the morning. It's going to increase your levels of energy then and throughout the morning and into the afternoon. Again, highly underrated protocol, in part because it takes a lot of dehydration before we realize that we're dehydrated. When you wake up in the morning, you use the restroom, you're probably mildly dehydrated. Get yourself hydrated first thing in the morning. Your cortisol levels will thank you. Your levels of energy will thank you. Now, if you're like me, you also hydrate with caffeine, okay? Now, the discussion around caffeine and cortisol can be a little bit confused by the sort of discrepancies in the literature as to, yes, caffeine increases cortisol, or some studies that show, no, caffeine doesn't increase cortisol, but it might extend the life of cortisol. Here's the big picture on caffeine and cortisol, at least the meaningful one. If you're a chronic caffeine user, meaning you drink caffeine every day or you've consumed caffeine every day for the previous 5 days, which is the typical framework in one of these studies, and then you drink caffeine, 100 milligrams, 200 milligrams, 300 milligrams, even an energy drink that includes caffeine and some other things, the increase in cortisol that you're going to experience is probably not that significant, unless it's a massively elevated dose of caffeine for you. However, if you're somebody who's not caffeine adapted, you're not drinking caffeine every day, you haven't had it for the last 5 days, then yes, you will experience a significant increase in cortisol levels. So you have to ask yourself, are you a chronic caffeine user? Are you an occasional caffeine user? Or do you not use caffeine? If you're somebody who avoids caffeine because it makes you anxious or you just don't like it, then by all means, don't drink caffeine just to spike your cortisol. It will be very effective in spiking your cortisol, but I can't really encourage you to drink caffeine if you don't want to. If, however, you're somebody who regularly drinks caffeine, you now know that it's not going to boost your cortisol levels that much, maybe a little bit, depending on how much you drink. If it's a typical amount for you, meaning you're caffeine adapted to that amount of caffeine, probably not much cortisol increase will come from drinking that amount. However, it will prolong the duration of cortisol's effectiveness in your bloodstream. This has to do with a number of different pathways. But the point being, if you have your caffeine, say, 30 minutes after waking, or 5 minutes after waking, or 90 minutes after waking, well, it's probably not going to boost your cortisol levels that much if you're already viewing bright sunlight, you're hydrating. We'll talk about exercise and some other things in a moment. But if you're drinking that caffeine shortly after waking up or shortly close to when you get that big cortisol spike, it's going to make the downslope of that cortisol spike a bit more gradual. Or if you're drinking caffeine throughout the morning, a lot more gradual. So let me present 2 scenarios in which you can use caffeine to improve your levels of mood, focus, and alertness by way of the cortisol pathway. And here I'm only speaking to people who habitually use caffeine. So you're drinking caffeine every morning. The first group is one that I commonly encounter. These are people that say, listen, I don't care what I hear out there. I want my coffee or I want my yerba mate, which is my preferred source of caffeine, first thing in the morning, right? Ideally even before water. Well, there I'd say, please drink water first, but even if you're not going to, sure, go ahead and drink your caffeine. Drink that caffeine. It's not going to boost your cortisol that much, but make sure you're doing a bunch of other things. Bright light viewing, talk about exercise in a moment, etc. Do a bunch of other things to make sure that morning cortisol spike is really, really high, because that's what you want. Now, there's a second group of people that say, hey, I want my caffeine first thing in the morning, or I'm drinking my caffeine first thing in the morning, but then I'm crashing really hard in the late morning, crashing really hard in the afternoon, and it's not because I'm not sleeping well at night. It's like something's happening. This is where the recommendation that I've been making for some years now of delaying your caffeine by anywhere from 60 to 90 minutes comes about. You now know that caffeine for a habitual user is not going to increase your cortisol levels that much. However, you also now know that drinking caffeine will extend the life of cortisol somewhat. So the logic here is, if you drink your caffeine not immediately after waking, but let's say an hour after waking or 90 minutes after waking, it's going to flatten out a bit the downslope of that cortisol as you transition from late morning into the early afternoon. A lot of reason why people crash in the afternoon, they get that extreme fatigue, typically after lunch. Yes, it can be due to eating too much at lunch. Yes, it can be due to eating too many starchy carbohydrates or sugars at lunch. It can be due to lack of sleep. But assuming that you're doing all the things right and you're still experiencing that crash in the afternoon, there's a good chance that it's because your morning cortisol peak, high enough or no, is coming down too fast. And in order to make it more gradual, you simply shift your caffeine intake a little bit later so that that diminishing caffeine level that it starts to occur around 10 a.m., 11 a.m., of course, all of this relates to exactly when you wake up, but that dropping level in caffeine isn't a steep cliff, it's a little bit more gradual. And I can't tell you how many thousands of people have contacted me and said, oh my goodness, I can't believe it. Simply by pushing out my caffeine intake by 60 minutes or even 30 minutes, or in some cases 90 minutes after waking, I've been able to not experience that crash in energy in the afternoon. And they generally thank me for this. Indeed, most all of them are writing to me to thank me for this. For those of you that absolutely love your caffeine first thing in the morning, you want your caffeine first thing in the morning and you just refuse to delay it, fine. I never ever said that you couldn't do that. In fact, you can do whatever you want. I'm simply giving you an opportunity to extend the life of that morning cortisol pulse. Caffeine's a great way to do that. And for those of you that don't consume caffeine regularly, but like to use it as an occasional tool, like if you need to stay up late, for instance, or only under conditions in which you really, really need to wake up quickly, well, in that case, it's actually going to be a pretty terrific tool because you will indeed achieve a big increase in cortisol, energy, and alertness, which for the rest of us habitual caffeine users, where you're seeking every day, we're drinking our caffeine, and it's harder and harder to get. That's just the nature of caffeine tolerance. Okay, let's talk about exercise and its effects on cortisol. In many ways, exercise's effects on cortisol are similar to those of caffeine. And I say that because it really depends on how regularly you perform a particular type of exercise. Now, studies of the effects of exercise on cortisol are complicated by the fact that sometimes they looked at people who are regular exercisers. Let's say they were runners, they look at the effects of running on cortisol. Or they were resistance trainers, and so they do weightlifting, and then they look at the effects of weightlifting on cortisol. They look before, during, and after, this kind of thing. They look as a function of frequency of training. All of that's been done. However, some labs have also explored the effects of, say, runners who take up resistance training, or people who are non-exercisers who suddenly start resistance training, or running. When I looked at all of that literature, you come away with a picture where, just like with caffeine, if you are accustomed to exercising in a particular way and at a particular time of day, the elevation in cortisol that you experience from that workout is going to be less than if it's a completely novel scenario, both in terms of time and the type of workout. In other words, if you're like me and you like to exercise within the first 3 hours of the day, and you exercise in the first 3 hours of the day doing either resistance training or cardiovascular exercise, because I'll do both on separate days, but I'll do both. Neither of those is particularly novel to me. And I do those at the intensity that is familiar to me, which for me is moderate to high intensity. Well, the increase in cortisol that one experiences is not that great. You get big increases in other things like the catecholamines, dopamine, epinephrine, and norepinephrine. And yes, you do get some increase in cortisol, in particular in the late stages, meaning late in the first hour of exercise. Typically, my resistance training sessions don't span longer than 90 minutes. That includes the warm-up and the cool-down. So after about 70 minutes of resistance training with real effort, close to failure or to failure, this kind of thing, cortisol levels are way up. And they'll stay up for a short while, meaning an hour or so after exercise, and then they'll come back down, especially if you're doing things to deliberately bring them down, including eating a meal laden with carbohydrates, which will help bring those cortisol levels down. But if, for instance, somebody who's never resistance trained or who's primarily an endurance athlete starts resistance training in that way, the literature points to the fact that they will experience much higher cortisol levels, and those cortisol levels will be sustained over many more hours. The same thing could be said for endurance exercise or for high-intensity interval training. I don't want to complicate things too much by spelling out each of the different scenarios. I will provide a link to it, what I consider a really nice paper. It's just one of the several pointing to this, but the title of the paper is Endocrine Responses of the Stress System to Different Types of Exercise, and they looked at single-bout endurance, regular endurance, single-bout high-intensity exercise, regular high-intensity exercise, single-bout resistance, regular resistance. So they went through not all, but many of the permutations that are possible and spell out what are the effects on cortisol, what are the effects on the catecholamines, norepinephrine and epinephrine in this case, what are the effects on inflammatory cytokines. We sometimes forget this, but inflammatory cytokines are a healthy byproduct of exercise because those trigger the adaptations in your immune system and other tissues to adapt, to get stronger, including your immune system. And they also looked at growth hormone. It was kind of interesting because where you find big increases in cortisol, you also see big increases in growth hormone in response to exercise. Meaning when the exercise is novel, either because it's a form of exercise or because the intensity is novel. So we can take a step back and say with certainty, exercise increases cortisol. However, if the form of exercise and the timing is very familiar to you, the amount of cortisol, and in particular the duration of cortisol increase, is not going to be that significant as compared to if it's a completely novel form or timing of exercise. Now, is the increase in cortisol that's achieved with your, let's call them your regular workouts, right? Typically, if you run or you lift weights or you do some sort of interval training, if you're doing any number or just one of those things, is the amount of cortisol increase that you experience going to be significant in terms of helping you anchor that cortisol cycle so that cortisol is higher in the morning and lower in the afternoon and evening? The answer is yes. Exercise of a type that's familiar to you, of an intensity that's familiar to you, may not significantly increase your cortisol levels as compared to a form of exercise that's novel. However, exercise provides a very strong what's called an entrainment cue. Entrainment cues are cues of things that we do. These could be meals, it could be light exposure, it could be exercise, it could be all sorts of things, even social engagement, that seam back onto the SCN, the suprachiasmatic nucleus, and reinforce the timing of the cortisol release that the SCN causes. So there are these beautiful interactions between exercise, the SCN, and cortisol release that when we exercise at roughly the same period of time each day, it doesn't have to be right on the minute, but within the same 2 or 3 hour window each day. And since, like most people, you're probably not exercising every single day, perhaps 3 days a week, 4 days a week, ideally 5 or 6 days a week. When you do that, pretty soon you get a cortisol increase simply in response to the timing rolling around in a very Pavlovian way, even if you don't exercise. Now, you have to keep exercising to maintain that. But the key here is that when you exercise in the same 2 to 3 hour window each day, or at least 3 days a week, ideally 4, 5, 6 days per week, I do think it's important to have at least one complete rest day. When you do that, that big peak in cortisol that's endogenously generated by your SCN, that's just internally generated without doing anything else, it gets anchored to that stage of the day in a very solid way as compared to people who don't exercise for a day. So the point here is that you exercise, sure, to increase your cortisol, but probably for a bunch of other reasons more than you do to increase your cortisol. But getting your cortisol rhythm correct is absolutely essential. In fact, it's going to give you the anticipatory energy for exercise. In fact, you can try this. It's remarkable. If you exercise at the same time of day for, say, 4 to 5, maybe 6 days per week, you just do that for a week. And it doesn't have to be, again, exactly at the same time you start, exactly at the same time you stop, plus or minus 30 minutes. What you'll find is that in the hour leading into that exercise, you will start to experience an increase in energy. And it's not just psychological. There's an anticipatory rise in cortisol that's governed by the SCN and this process that we call entrainment, which is anticipation. It's kind of like a Pavlovian response, but it's on a longer time scale. Well, regardless of time scale, it's a very real thing. So if you're somebody who doesn't seem to have much energy, much get up and go in the morning, and you're getting your bright light, you're getting your hydration, maybe you're even drinking caffeine, you're doing all of that, and you're still feeling kind of sluggish, exercising for 3 or 4 days, not necessarily in a row, feel free to introduce a rest day as needed, but doing that across the course of a week for 4 to 6 days will lead you into a second week, a third week, etc., provided you keep it up, where you're going to have more energy heading into the exercise, therefore more energy to exercise. It's just going to be a positive feedback loop on your cortisol levels. This is a very robust effect, and in fact, it's so robust that you can observe it in mice, you can observe it in dogs. Your dog knows when it's time for a walk, even if you don't say walk. It has internal endogenous cues that, between the hours of 7 and 9 a.m., it's time for a walk, and it will start to experience a surge in energy. You are the exact same way. These are hardwired, very long established systems in our brain and body, and you can absolutely give yourself more energy to do the things that require energy by exercising at roughly the same time. Again, within the same 3 hour window is probably the broadest, but even better would be in the same 2 hour window each day. And if you miss a day, no big deal. You'll just have more energy during that time to devote to other things. Okay, what about deliberate cold exposure? Cold showers, cold plunges, this kind of thing. You all know that deliberate cold exposure wakes you up, okay? Despite it being somewhat controversial in other domains like metabolism, deliberate cold exposure definitely wakes you up. And it wakes you up very fast. And it does that because it causes the release of epinephrine and more epinephrine. And then you get this long arc of dopamine release. This is one of the major reasons, if not the major reason, why people who start deliberate cold exposure continue to do it, right? If for no other reason, wakes people up, makes them feel good for many hours afterwards. Now, I know many people are averse to the cold, really don't like it. And frankly, if you don't like it, you don't have to do it. But it absolutely causes an increase in the catecholamines, dopamine, epinephrine, and norepinephrine. And the long-lasting effects on dopamine are quite striking, meaning there are very few other things that can cause that long, slow release of dopamine to the levels that it does, which changes with alertness, etc. Now, the big question, for sake of this discussion, is, does deliberate cold exposure cause the release of cortisol? Just like with exercise, just like with caffeine, the real question that we have to ask ourselves is, how novel, how unfamiliar is that deliberate cold exposure. Because while the perfect experiment has never really been done, if you amass the literature on this, what you find is that if you put people into very cold water, or even just cold for them, uncomfortably cold for them water, yes, they'll increase more cortisol. Yes, they'll release cortisol into their bloodstream. However, if they do this habitually, then the increases in cortisol are not meaningful. They're not statistically significant. So that actually leads to two important takeaways. The first one is, if you want to use deliberate cold exposure as a way to increase cortisol, great, do that. But probably don't do it more than, say, 1 or 2 times per week. Otherwise, it will lose its effectiveness for that purpose. It will still be very effective for all the other reasons that deliberate cold exposure has been purported to be effective, including increased release of catecholamines. So the takeaway here is very straightforward. If you want to boost your cortisol levels using deliberate cold exposure, cold shower, ice plunge, whatever it is, you can do that. But it needs to be occasional deliberate cold exposure, probably not more than twice per week. Otherwise, you're not going to get a significant increase in cortisol as a consequence of that deliberate cold exposure. However, if you're somebody who likes doing deliberate cold exposure, keep in mind that it's not going to chronically elevate your cortisol. This is advantageous for a number of reasons. First of all, it will, yes, continue to elevate your levels of dopamine, norepinephrine, and epinephrine for increased mood and energy. That effect persists. As far as we know, that effect never saturates. But if you're somebody who's concerned about elevating your cortisol too much, you're concerned about chronic elevation of cortisol, and I hear a lot about this in the circles around, important differences between men's fitness and health and women's fitness and health, and maybe that deliberate cold exposure is good for men and not for women. There's really no evidence to support that. In fact, evidence points in exactly the opposite direction, which is that when people, men or women, do deliberate cold exposure regularly, more than twice per week, then the impact on cortisol is not significant, and yet they still can benefit by getting those increases in dopamine, epinephrine, and norepinephrine. I'd like to take a quick break and acknowledge one of our sponsors, Element.
Either I walk away from
Element
here
is an
with answers
electrolyte
or
drink
your
that has
ears.
everything
The
you
choice
need
is
and
yours.
nothing you don't. That means the
Relax,
electrolytes,
Ray, I'll
sodium,
talk.
magnesium, and potassium in the correct amounts, but no sugar. Proper hydration is critical for optimal brain and body function. Even a slight degree of dehydration can diminish cognitive and physical performance. It's also important that you get adequate electrolytes. The electrolytes, sodium, magnesium, and potassium, are vital for functioning of all the cells in your body, especially your neurons or your nerve cells. Drinking Element dissolved in water makes it very easy to ensure that you're getting adequate hydration and adequate electrolytes. To make sure that I'm getting proper amounts of hydration and electrolytes, I dissolve 1 packet of Element in about 16 to 32 ounces of water when I first wake up in the morning, and I drink that basically first thing in the morning. I'll also drink Element dissolved in water during any kind of physical exercise that I'm doing, especially on hot days when I'm sweating a lot and losing water and electrolytes. Element has a bunch of great tasting flavors. I love the raspberry, I love the citrus flavor. Right now, Element has a limited edition lemonade flavor that's absolutely delicious. I hate to say that I love one more than all the others, but this looks... I'm sure there's some of you out there who are aware, or not, I'll tell you, there are studies that have explored this practice of so-called grounding. They've had people come into the laboratory with soil that is contained within a box, or there are other studies where they actually have people go out outdoors and place their feet on the grass or the ground. There are a bunch of theories as to how grounding can
drive.
mental and physical health that aren't just about getting outside. I'm sure there's some of you out there who are aware, if you're not, I'll tell you, there are studies that have explored this practice of so-called grounding. They've had people come into the laboratory and place their feet on soil that is contained within the box, or there are other studies where they actually have people go outdoors and place their feet on the grass or the ground. There are a bunch of theories as to how grounding can improve one's mental and physical health that aren't just about getting outside. I'm sure there's some of you out there who are aware, if you're not, I'll tell you, there are studies that have explored this practice of so-called grounding. We've had people come into the laboratory and place their feet on soil box, or there are other studies where they actually have people go out indoors and place their feet on the grass or the ground. There are a bunch of theories as to how grounding could improve one's mental and physical health that aren't just about getting outside. I'm sure there's some of you out there who are aware. If you're not, I'll tell you, there are...
Hey, the holiday season is here.
This is a review of the Foco grounding. The purpose of grounding is to allow your body to connect to Earth's natural electrical charge. I bought this grounding mat because during the winter months we have snow in Canada, so I can't walk around outside on the ground or even dip my toes in the sand. Using a grounding mat can help mimic the same effect as walking barefoot outdoors without even leaving your home. I like this grounding mat because the front is soft and the back has a non-slip rubber. That was important for me when I was looking for a mat because we have hardwood floors. The mat itself is 24 inches by 16 inches and it comes with a 15-foot long grounding cord. Having that long grounding cord is great because it allows you to have more flexibility.
Demo's primed and in place.
The mat, no matter where your favorite spot may be. To use the grounding mat, all you do is unroll the mat, snap the grounding cord onto the mat, and plug it into the ground socket on your electrical wall outlet. The ground socket is the phone at the very bottom of the outlet. I love that you can easily incorporate this grounding mat into your daily routine. You can use it when you're sitting at your desk, while you're watching television, or you can use it as a yoga mat or stand on it when you're getting ready in the morning. I give this grounding mat a 5-star review. Having this grounding mat provides the benefits of being grounded without having to be outside knee-deep in snow during the winter months.
Tango is fucking down.
In this video, I will be grounding for 7 days and documenting my experience. Join me for this journey.
We got a mounted weapon. We've got enemy activity nearby.
So, for the last couple months, I unfortunately seem to be stuck in a season of sickness.
Okay, all clear.
I fell ill at the end of February, was better for a few days, and then unfortunately was exposed to someone who had the flu, and then I got the flu. And I've been dealing with residual congestion and just, some chest congestion, some nasal congestion. So, in general, my body is just needing some TLC and some love. So, it was a few months ago that I came across the idea of grounding, and I thought it sounded pretty interesting as someone who loves the outdoors and understands the
Sniper,
healing
top of the tower.
Moving.
of nature.
Copy.
And then
Target
I came
marked.
across a free documentary on YouTube on grounding. So after watching that, it really inspired me to want to dabble more into grounding because it seems really beneficial, especially for inflammation. And obviously, my body
Call the rebels for some indirect fire.
Grounding is something you can do outside, absolutely. Getting your bare feet on the ground. Obviously, that's not always able to happen if the weather is bad. If you can't be outside all the time, if you have work to do. So,
Drone is airborne.
all that being considered,
Signal's all
I
bad.
decided
They're jamming
that
the
I wanted
drone.
to buy a grounding product. So there are different products out there that you can use for grounding in your home. And essentially they work by plugging in this grounding product into a plug and an outlet into your wall. And then that item becomes
Drones are fucked
grounded.
up.
And you can
Jamming us.
therefore
They got an air defense
experience all
system?
the
Spotting another
benefits
tango.
of grounding from
Lieutenant got eyes on a supply bird.
so I'm going to be
It's
doing
fully
a little
loaded.
grounding
Let's take it. The
experiment
rebels can
with
really
my
use that gear.
grounding product. I purchased a grounding mat, and my goal is
Moving to position.
I
need a better position.
For 7
I've got the
days.
target. Hold up.
And
Let me get a good sight line.
Share my
Ready to engage.
experience with you all. So I'm really excited. I really think it will help me get rid of some of this residual inflammation from being sick. And I love that the grounding mat is something I can use while I'm working all day. If you think about it, you have around 8 hours a day that you're sitting at a desk if you have a desk job, and I can be grounding for that entire time. So as beautiful and nurturing and healing as it is to ground outside, it's just it's not always as realistic and attainable, so I'm really excited to try out this grounding mat and see what my experience is. So I'll be jumping into the experience, sharing my insights, so stay tuned. So here's some footage of me opening up my grounding mat for the very first time. The company I decided to purchase my grounding mat from is called Grounding, and their website is groundingofficial.com. There are a lot of different grounding product companies out there, but I decided to choose this one mainly because I liked their company origin story. The company was founded by a group of German, like-minded holistic healers that wanted to better serve their patients by creating affordable grounding products. I also liked that they are based out of Europe, and I liked the look and quality of their grounding products. Both their grounding mats and their grounding sheets had really great customer reviews. The mat came with a little information flyer, a cord, and an adapter for those people who don't have standard North American plugs in their home. If you live in North America, you are able to just attach the provided cord into the mat and plug the other end into your wall outlet. Once your product is plugged in, it's grounded and ready to use. So day one of grounding, and my plan is to be able to ground all day as I'm working. So
Good. You all in one piece?
I set up my grounding pad at my desk.
I wouldn't join Unidad.
Right under my feet.
Not for me.
So I'll be able to utilize
Enemy
it.
activity, stay sharp.
My cousin
Eyes
got
on
joined
front
up
with the
and he
minigun.
took the
The
best party
airstrips.
with his
Take a
signing
look.
bonus. Money's not the problem, compa. Pues, ¿cuál es el problema?
Can't see squat. Drone's
What
being
about
jammed.
them? Oh, come on, man. You know as
Got
well
it,
as
moving.
I do, in the end, Unidad works for them.
Let me get a good sight line.
Quizás.
Eyes
Seems
on
like
the target.
everybody is these days. Anyway, maybe they're not
Target
So
as
it's the end of
fancy.
grounding,
Working for
day
the
one,
Mexicanos is not for
and
Enemy down.
I'm feeling
I'll
good.
sell them
I feel
cocoa leaves,
like
but I don't want no foreign jefe.
it feels similar to how it feels when I ground outside and put my feet on the ground, except
Sniper
I
up
was
in the
able
tower.
to feel like that all day with my mat while I was working.
Drone's fucked
So
up. Jamming
it's
us.
obviously still very early, only day one,
Sniper,
but
top of
you'll
the
see
tower.
what the other days bring.
I asked the rebels to recon the area for us.
So after doing some grounding during my workday, I decided to also fit in some extra grounding that evening before bedtime.
Moving to
Just
position.
wanted to check in and share the way I feel when my feet are on this grounding mat.
Copy.
So I've
Target
never used
marked.
the grounding mat or product before, so I'm not sure if this post
That's
is
one down.
different or feel something. But I will say that as soon as my feet hit the mat, it feels like there's like this gentle, almost tingling sensation in my feet. And it doesn't feel alarming or anything. It doesn't feel like
Santa Blanca
feet are
commendation.
asleep, but it just
Those
feels really
Sicarios will be missing
like a
this.
comforting, gentle tingle, if that makes sense. I honestly wasn't expecting to feel anything just having my feet on the mat. I thought it would just feel normal, but yeah, it does feel like it's almost like a conductive energy feeling, like maybe it's an energy exchange that's happening from the grounding mat on my feet. Because the whole point of grounding is that you're getting, the energy and healing from the earth, like that effect. So yeah, I definitely feel something. So I guess that's encouraging. I also just wanted to share a little bit about the documentary that I watched that inspired me to buy a grounding product. So it's actually called The Earthing
Sniper up in the
Within.
tower.
And I came across it because it was
I'm
actually
moving to
free to
position.
me to watch on YouTube, which is really cool. And it was a very
Let me get into
interesting
position.
documentary.
Eyes on the
Really
target. Let me get in
interesting.
position.
There's a man named Clint Owerman who was the creator behind
Say the
this
word,
whole
boss.
grounding theory. He worked in electricity, and he started thinking about how every time you plug something into
what the
an
fuck?
outlet, you're grounding that thing to the earth. And knowing all the benefits of nature, he thought it would be interesting to design a product that can help people to ground and just in general start teaching people about grounding in nature, even without products, just going outside in your bare feet and the positive effects that can have. And there's so many people who have had these amazing benefits in their health from practicing grounding on a regular basis. Everything from weight loss to chronic inflammation disappearing to better blood flow, to a decrease in their diseases and illnesses that they have dealt with for years and years and years. So it was really fascinating and really intrigued me. And I just know personally how much I benefit from nature whenever I'm outside, just breathing in fresh air. And when I do have a day where I can be barefoot outside, if it's a nice enough day and I can stand on top of the earth, I just know how good that makes me feel. So the idea.
Shut the fuck up.
¿Qué fue eso, pues? Ya me picó el mosquito.
Unidad bird approaching. Stay down.
Desert plunge.
Copy.
I had never
Get
heard
down.
of them before. My friend David Moss, who has reviewed more cold plunges than anyone on the planet, I'm pretty sure, told me that they were the best cold
Buckle up,
plunge
people.
for the money. So I reached out to
Okay,
them
we're
to see if
cool.
they would send me
Cool,
one. They
let's
ended up
move.
sending me two. Both of their models we're going to be reviewing in this video to give you my perspective on what I think about this one, which is the exclusive, and their other model, which is the wide. So in this video, we're going to find out if I agree with David, and hopefully you'll be able to figure out which one is right for you, if it's this one or if it's different. The interior is going to be 47.25 inches long, 24.25 wide, and then 23.7 deep inside of the tub itself. This plunge is not suitable to put on a balcony because once you fill it up, it's going to be basically over 1,000 pounds. So this is
Choppers
the
approaching.
wide, which is a full 7.5 inches wider than the exclusive. This is the custom built Grizzly 450 cooler. This thing is huge. I just want to give you guys the perspective of like how much wider this thing is. It's really not small. So the dimensions of the wide are going to
clear.
be
You
46
wanna
and a
check
half
the truck
long,
for anything
31
we're
and a
taking.
half inches wide, and 22 inches deep. So this is definitely the one you want to get if you're a large human. So let's talk about what you get with the star of the show, which is
We good?
this
Shit got close for a
customized
second.
Grizzly tub that's super well insulated for full body submersion. You also get a 1,200 gallons per hour pump for super strong circulation. You're also going to get the Active Aqua quarter horsepower chiller known
Jesus,
for
what the
durability and
fuck?
reliability. This is a very common chiller that you'll see amongst a lot of cold plunges. And then you also get an optional ozone system for water cleanliness. Then you get the setup components of the filter canister, the valves, the extra filters, hoses, safety adapters, and a phone holder. With the Desert Plunge wide, you get everything that you get with the exclusive. The only difference is how big it is. Everything else is the same. Because I only got one chiller with the shipment that I got to do these reviews, my buddy Mike actually plugged in this Penguin chiller, which is really, really good. It's an industrial grade chiller built in America, and this does not come standard with the wide. So as you're setting it up, you want to put it on as stable ground as possible. Ironically, this is a
Sniper,
little
top
bit
of the
of
tower.
a slant, but it's okay. It works just fine as it is. It has these latches. You just pull open, and this is good for, keeping the children out if that's an issue, or just keeping the elements or any
One less
wildlife
bad guy.
from getting into the tub. Because of the way that this thing is
Sniper,
built,
get
it's
down.
To the vehicle from the rebels.
well insulated. So there's not going to be any condensation that builds up on the exterior. Doesn't matter what temperature it is outside, which is nice if you have this in an indoor setting. You don't want the cold plunge condensating, sweating water everywhere. And this chiller cools down to 39 degrees. Another feature that it has is as you lift up the lid, it has this latch lock feature so that if you're inside or anyone else is inside, this isn't going to come down on you. So you're protected and it's totally safe. I want to tell you a little bit about the experience. It's really easy to get in. And as you get in, this is definitely going to overflow, but
Going nuts.
this goes deep. And you can submerge really easily up to your neck. Or if you want to dunk, you can do that too.
I'm getting a position.
And I can also sit. I can lay back, I can recline,
Target acquired. Stay.
and my friend,
Call for some
whose
rebels
house
back.
this is
So,
at,
I'm asking the
I,
rebels to
ended
draw
up
their
giving this
attention.
one to him because he liked it more than the ice barrel where you had to be like upright. This cold plunge can definitely fit a big person, like 6'1", 250. As a smaller person, it's really nice. I can actually put my feet against the wall and I can just brace myself, which is nice because then I'm not like moving around, which I hate when I'm trying to cold plunge. and I can just get into my zone. So as far as the overall experience goes, it's good. I could easily fit another person right there. This could definitely fit 2 people. I'm a pretty small guy though, so
We got a man down.
as well. So this is my buddy Wes, who is the one who actually helped me set up the original Desert Plunge exclusive, and then he set up the wide right here, and he's been getting a lot of use out of it. So I'm going to let him tell you about his experience using the wide, and then we're both going to get in and experience it to tell you about it in real time.
I love this thing. You know, it's about 90 degrees out here in Austin right now. So I filled it up. The water going in was 74 degrees Celsius. This thing cooled it down within 3 hours, down to 41. Well, it got unplugged last night at like midnight. And then when I came back this morning at 9 a.m. and plugged it in, the water temp had only gone up 2 degrees. That's super efficient. That to me was like notable at how well insulated this thing is. The maintenance on this thing is very easy. Like literally over here, there's one big plug. You open that plug up, all the water rushes out in like a few minutes. You give it a quick hose and a rub down, spray everything out, and empty it, and like your tank's as good as new. You know, this filter housing is really the only other piece that needs maintenance, really, and it's got a nice bypass valve, so you can actually leave everything running, turn the valve to bypass, unscrew this, rinse it off, put it back in, and it's like super efficient. I like to get in, I sit down, I'll do the head dog first. I bring my feet out.
Shit, we got a sniper.
Just to kind of get in there, but the position in the tank is really nice. Like I can sit like with my legs crossed, my neck fully submerged, so like my whole vagus nerve is getting stimulated, and just really breathe. So I think someone that's probably a couple inches taller would have no problem being in here. You know, probably 6'6", 6'7". So there's a lot of space in this. My shoulders are nowhere close to touching the sides, so this thing's great.
Okay, I'm gonna give the wide a go now. Compare it to the exclusive. Yeah, this thing is huge, man. It just feels like a huge bathtub. It's cold, man. It's really cold. That's no joke.
Sniper.
It's good. Yeah, it's really good. Yeah. Okay, let's talk about the price,
Get down,
and the customer service. The price of the exclusive is $3,048, and the price of the wide is $3,300. So you pay just a little bit more for that extra room, which makes sense. Desert Plunge offers a 1-year limited warranty, and it basically covers any defects.
Hit the dirt.
Yeah, $100.
Fucking hell.
Let me get in position. Sniper, get the fuck down.
However, it doesn't cover misuse or modification problems because of improper installation. The founders are this couple, Matt and Bree, who I've spoken with on the phone, and they're incredible people. They just want to get full plunges in the hands of more people at a price point that's actually reasonable. As far as what I've seen, they handle their customers very seriously, and I see nothing but good reviews in terms of people either having issues, and then Matt and Bree fixing it really quickly, or them just hand-holding people through the process, helping them get set up easily. So based on what I've seen, you'll be in really, really good hands. Let's talk about who these full plunges are right for. This is right for you if you've been doing the DIY thing for a while. You're just tired of short looks. They're tired of the problems that DIY has and just trying to fix it, clean it, things that come with that. This is the upgrade that you've been looking for. This is also for you if you just want something that works well and is reliable. And you kind of like this cool look. It's a good look. This is for someone who is committed to cold plunging, like they're ready to invest in this habit as for their lifestyle, or they're already investing in doing this type of thing regularly, and they just don't want to pay a fortune to do that, and they want a nice setup in their home. This is also for the person who just needs a bigger setup and wants to fit like multiple people into their cold plunge. This is a really good option for that. This feels like more of like a party cold plunge where you have lots of people going through it, and you can even do multiple people at once. This is also a good option for someone who wants to move their cold plunge around, because once you take out the water, it's actually not that difficult. You get one other person and you can shift it around pretty easily. This is also for you if you want that lay down style tub. You don't want the upright position. You also don't like that porcelain bathtub situation where you're like sliding around all the time, and you want something that's super well insulated. Let's talk about who this is not right for. I don't think this is the most beautiful cold plunge that's out there. So if you're optimizing for aesthetics, this probably isn't the one for you. This also is not right for you if you just want something that's plug and play. Like the people drop it off, you plug it in, you put some water in, and it's good to go. There's a little bit of setup. It's not super hard. Like it's actually relatively easy, but if you just want something that's like seamless, you don't even want to think about that, this is not the one for you. This cold plunge is also not right for you if you don't want your chiller to be outside of the cold plunge, which you'd need to do if you're going to use the desert plunge. This is also not the cold plunge for you if you want that more active posture where you're sitting straight up or you're standing up. This is just not designed for that. I mean, you can definitely do a sitting posture, but it's not the same as the ice barrel where you're like up here and
I
you're
asked
kind of like
Pacatari to send us a vehicle.
out of all the cold plunges that I've done, I think this one is probably the best value in terms of the effectiveness, ease of setting it up, and the price point. It's just the whole package. You're gonna have a good experience. It's going to be easy to put together, and it's not going to break the bank. I would definitely recommend this cold plunge for anyone who's looking to get one at a reasonable price. And you kind of want to do that party cold plunge situation we have like a bunch of people in there. And again, if you want to get one of these, I'll put a link down in the description with a discount code, and that should save you some money as well. If you like this video, then go watch this video right here where me and David reviewed like, I don't know, like 13 or 15 different cold plunges at all the different price points. I know if you don't want to get this one, that video will help you make the right decision for you.
So a lot of people probably don't know is I filmed everything myself. I edit everything. Well, I used to edit. So after testing and review, relatively easy, but it's not this that will help you make the right decision for you. In terms of the effectiveness, ease of setting it up, and the price point, it's just the whole package. You're gonna have a good experience. It's gonna be easy to put together. And it's not we definitely recommend this book.
Unidad bird on patrol. Watch out.
And you kind of want to do that pretty situation.
Down, get down, chopper.
And again, if you want to get one of these, I'll put the link down in the description with the discount. And that should save you some money as well. If you like this video, then go watch this video right here. We literally tried every cold plunge and
Opening fire. Mega cartel reinforcements.
Drone is up.
Helicopter, get down.
What the fuck?
You're in bad shape. Take cover. Shit, they spotted us. You'll be okay. I'm on my way. Hostile killed.
Shitballs.
Enemigas sin identificar. Nos reportan varias bajas. Las unidades para contraatacar ya vienen para acá.
Ahora, mantengan la búsqueda. Las tropas hostiles
You guys all good?
zona.
Damn, I
Todas
love
las
this job.
unidades salgan del servicio.
You're stupid. Okay.
Check this spot out for intel.
Found a rebel radio transmitter that's been cold for too long. Let's heat it up.
You know, there's a reason why the rebels don't keep these things running. Like all the bullets the cartel throws at them. Guess we'll have to throw some back.
I got eyes on a weapons case. I've been wanting one of these. These supplies will buy us a lot of goodwill from the rebels.
Every price point so that you can find the right one for you. Everything from a $850 bathtub cold plunge to a $20,000 commercial grade plunge and everything in between. I met my friend David Moss, who's reviewed more cold plunges than anyone I know. And at the end of this video, we're going to decide what is the best value, what is the best luxury, and what's the top line overall. If you want to get any of these cold plunges, there'll be links down below with discount codes for all the ones that we can get. Okay, so the first one up on the list is going to be the Zero. Zero Pod is a really interesting product. I met the founders here with Leon Olsen. Basically what it is a chiller that you put right next to your bathwater. And then you take these two hoses and you put it into your bathwater, and then it circulates this water and fills it. So you can actually transform your bathtub into cold plunge. This is a great option because the price point is $849. So for anyone who's wanting to get into cold plunge, or you're on a budget, or you're just getting started with this thing, you don't even know if this is going to be something do long term, and this is something you might want to look into. This setup is pretty easy. You just plug it in, you turn, you put the hoses into the machine, and then you put the other end of the hoses into the water, and it starts working. It takes a few hours, it's about 3 to 4 hours to cool one chip. So if you want to speed that up, then maybe buy a couple batteries of ice and you put it in first, and then you can set the temperature to whatever you want it to be. So depending on what type of bathtub you have is really going to determine what this is going to feel like and how exciting it's going to be, or how exciting it's going to be. If you just have a standard bathtub where you kind of have to like lean back really far because it's not that deep, then this may not be the greatest experience. But if you're just looking for a convenient way to do cold therapy and that's all you got, then hey, it's definitely not the worst option. It's definitely better than buying ice. If you have a really nice bathtub that's kind of like deep and it's like, you know, it's a pipe and it's like in this cool like master bathroom, then this one actually might be a really cool option. Now, I gotta say that I think that this is a very new company, so the propensity for these things to have issues is definitely higher. So when they dropped the unit and I started to try it, I actually started to have some issues. I reached out to them like, hey man, I don't really want to talk about like that, you know, I can't depend on. So to the founders' credit, they said, oh, hey, we want you to be as authentic as possible. Here's our policy. If anything goes wrong, you can either get a full refund, you can ship back the product and we'll send you a brand new one, or we'll exchange it for the new version that we're working on that is going to be coming out soon. So either way, depending on what option you want to do, they're going to take care of it. I can't fully put my name behind this product yet because I have this issue, and I want to introduce it, and I want to be honest, I want to share that, hey, this might be a good option, I just don't know yet. But I really like the founders, they were really sweet about it, and they fixed my problem right away and brought me a brand new one. I got to try it, and the actual experience of getting in it, it was nice. It was like, hey, this is cold water, this is a cold plunge, right? And it's in the comfort of your own home, you can just drain your bathtub, and it's super easy. How I imagine this working for someone is the next day when you want to do a cold plunge, you just set it up the night before, you
program it for how cold you want it to be, and then boom, you get up, you hit the cold plunge in the bathtub, and you start your day. And then you drain it, and then you don't have to worry about it. And then you can just do it again the next day if you want, or you just leave it there for a little bit. And we can do a couple days of that before it gets gross, but I think this is a really cool low-cost option for anyone wanting to cold plunge. So they have a 30-day money-back guarantee, and then they also have a 0 leaks, 0 defects guarantee. So if you experience any water leak or any other defect, we'll replace any defective units within 2 weeks over the first year of having the product, which I think is pretty good. So one thing I forgot to mention with the Zero Pod is if you don't have an insulated tub or porcelain tub, then this actually can lead to moisture issues. Because of the dew point in the air compared to the temperature in the tub, condensation will occur. So best be warned for that.
So the next one up is the Ice Barrel 300 without a chiller. And that's the cool thing about the Ice Barrel 300 is because of its low volume of water and its insulation, you don't absolutely need a chiller to keep your water nice and cold. So the price of that is $12.99. Setup is pretty much figure out where you want it, put it down where you want it, fill it up with water, throw some ice in. And just so you know, I'm a content creator who deals with a lot of these things, and I move these things around by myself. There's very few cold plunges that I have to have somebody help me move. The Ice Barrel 300 is not one. Some of the things that make the Ice Barrel 300 unique is that it's not massive, but it is kind of like a full-blown circle. It's easier for anybody who's shorter or taller to get into it. Now, if you are taller, it's a little more difficult to get fully submerged, but you don't have to get fully submerged in a cold plunge to get those benefits. It is fully insulated. There is a little seat down at the bottom of it, so you can get really comfortable.
Found the location for an airdrop
with
care
your legs
package.
crossed.
Let's go see if it's still there.
Armrests where when you get in it, the water rises, and your arms are still going to be underwater.
So something that you mentioned to me is that you tested all these different ice baths like next to each other and left them out in the sun in the Florida heat with ice in it to see how long they stayed cold. And I think there was something cool about the ice barrel that you mentioned to me before. What was that?
So I put roughly 50 pounds of ice in every type of cold plunge there was. And the Ice Barrel 301, it got the coldest with 50 pounds of ice, and it stayed the coldest the longest. I ended the test at about 3 days, and the water was still the exact temperature that it was when I put the ice in it. As far as maintenance goes for the Ice Barrel 300, the cool thing is at the very bottom there's a spigot that holds the water in, and then you open that and it drains the water out. So you are going to want to change your water out depending on how often it's being used and how clean you are when you get in your water at least once a month. The warranty on this thing is also a limited lifetime warranty. So as long as you don't do anything stupid to it, this thing should last you a lifetime. I do want to also talk about who it's for, who it's not for. I'd say the Ice Barrel 300 is really for short people who maybe don't want to add a chiller or don't need to add a chiller. They want to just have something that they can count on as their cold plunge. Some people like to take cold showers, use a horse trough, something like that, but it's really nice to have something that has a sealed lid that does fit perfectly so it keeps the elements out of it, stays nice and clean, that you can say that is my cold plunge. And it's probably not for a really tall person or a really large person because it is the tighter of most of the cold plunges out there.
So the next cold plunge that we're going to be talking about is the box plunge, and the price for the smaller one is going to be coming in at $27.99.
This is basically a chest freezer that's been converted into a cold plunge DIY style, but it's more DIY, done for you. So they took all those components, the chiller, the filter, the ozone, and they packaged it up and made it really kind of easy and seamless so that you don't have to do any of the work. I wouldn't say it's plug and play, but it's like Legos. Like you're just like stacking on these things onto the side of it. My experience of doing the chest freezer ice bath was so good in the beginning, and then it became such a pain. And so I thought this was a really cool option for someone who doesn't want to go through that pain. It's a good price point. It fits a nice like sweet spot kind of in the middle where it's like, hey, I'm committed to doing cold water therapy, but I just don't want to pay an arm and a leg for something that is really quite a simple solution, right? Which is, hey, dude, I'm just trying to get some cold water. So the setup was not as easy as I thought it was going to be. It actually took me like an hour. There's a lot of pieces I had to put together in the instructions.
We got Unidad coming in.
I gave that feedback to the CEO. He knows that, and I hope that he's changed it by this point in time, but I can't necessarily vouch for that. But once I got it set up, I actually got in the thing. Believe it or not, this is one of my favorite cold plunges I've ever used. Something about the chest freezer, it just fits good. Like you're in there, it's good depth, it's comfortable. And so if you're a smaller person, this is great for you. If you're a larger person, you'll need to get the larger chest freezer. I think it's a good option for someone who doesn't need all the crazy bells and whistles. You just want something that's simple, something that works. Some of the unique features that the box plunge has, it has a little phone holder that you can connect, has a little towel rack that you can connect. Towel rack's kind of janky, it's not the best. It definitely fell off. And then it has handles on the top to take the whole lid off, also kind of janky, not the best. You can bring the temperature down really low, like below 32 degrees. So if you're someone who wants to go hardcore and go really cold, this might be a good low-cost option for you. I think because of the Frankenstein product, that you have just more potential for
Let's
things
roll.
to work with. I still think that it's a good option. I just know that there are some other products that you pay a little bit more that you might not
into some of these maintenance issues. So who's this not for and who's this for? This is for the person who wants a low consumption that can go really cold and also wants to be in like a tighter, kind of like more comfortable and also deeper, like semi-laying down experience. Next up is the Embrace Limitless Tub. Now this is an inflatable portable cold plunge with a 1 horsepower chiller. The price of that, I believe, at the time of recording this, is $3,000, and that's the tub, the backpack, the chiller, and everything you need to get cold. Setup on that, super easy. You literally just figure out where you want it, you inflate it, figure out where you want your chiller, you set it next to it, you connect the tubes, and you fill it with water. It does have an inflatable lid that has child-proof locks and latches to hold the lid down. But one thing about all of the inflatables I've ever used and reviewed is they don't create a perfect seal. So if you live somewhere where it's windy or it's under trees, bugs, frogs, different things can get into your tub. The chiller does chill down to 37 degrees, and you can literally set it like to the point. So if you want it 37.5 degrees, the chiller has that capability, which is really easy. The chiller is also really quiet and efficient. I was impressed because it's a larger chiller. It is on wheels and all that. So, you know, it's one of those more robust chillers. Tubes connected to front. There's some cool things about it that I've never seen before. The experience getting into any inflatable is always really pleasant because there seems to be a lot more room. You can very easily make an inflatable cold plunge bigger. It's really deep. You can be huge. You can be short. It's a really comfortable cold plunge for every size. And because it's inflatable, it's very cushiony and the edges are round, so you can rest your head on the back. And it's a really comfortable experience inside the cold plunge. A couple of downsides to the inflatables are they could potentially pop. I have not heard of that too often. A lot of people in the cold plunging world reach out to me and ask me questions and try to help me troubleshoot them with different things. And that's one of the least likely things that happen that people think is going to happen the most is they don't typically pop. It does have a 2-year warranty, and one of the things I really liked about the brand is that I talked to the founder, super cool guy, and he is a little old school where he wants people to answer the phone. So if you have an issue, he says call, he will talk to a real human being, and that's really cool. You don't get that all the time. So the chiller uses a micron filter, which is going to filter out debris, different things that are going to be in your water. It also uses UV light, which kills bacteria as it passes through, which is really cool. You see that in swimming pools.
Let's loot the truck, see if there are any supplies.
So it's cool to see that in a cold plunge. So the maintenance on it is pretty much just changing out that filter once every 2 weeks. It all depends on how often you use your cold plunge, how many different people get in your cold plunge, and how you treat your cold plunge. So I always recommend take a shower, not in your bathtub, but like rinse off with a hose, rinse the sweat off, especially if you're doing contrast therapy in a sauna or something like that, or getting done with a run or a workout. Rinse the sweat off, rinse the sweat off, and then get your cold plunge cleaner to help keep the water cleaner a lot longer. This is good if you're bouncing around, maybe you're renting, you have an apartment, but you still want the benefits of cold plunging. It comes with a backpack. You can put everything in it except for the chiller, and you can take it with you on trips. It's portable. It's for any size person. Really, I've never seen somebody too big get into a...
Let me get into position. Copy
like
that.
Moving. And I'd probably say if you had like a beautiful home,
Roger.
and
Target
acquired.
Call the shot.
I'm opening fire. Set it there. You don't have to worry if a hurricane's coming or whatnot. You just leave it out there, and it's just there, and it's beautiful. It probably isn't the perfect cold plunge for you. There's maybe some other options. So next up, for just $148 more at $31.48 is the Desert Plunge exclusive. And Desert Plunge has been a really fun brand to work with. Before you really review a product, I like to talk to the founders and the creators and really understand who they are and if they're in it for the right reasons or not. Matt and Bree are the founders of Desert Plunge, phenomenal human beings, and they're building a really great cold plunge for the money. We're talking about the exclusive in this video, which is an exclusive product that Desert Plunge partnered up with Grizzly, and they're making a specific cold plunge for themselves. They basically took the Grizzly 400 and they stretched it 7.5 inches, so it's longer. It's still nice and deep. It's still nice and wide. It's actually tailored from like the footwell to the shoulders, goes out a little bit. So it's a cold plunge for all body types. They say up to 6'8". The setup on a Desert Plunge is super easy. When you look at all the components, when you pull the box out, it's going to seem like there's a lot. There's really not. Setup takes 5 to 10 minutes. You figure out where you want it. Now, the cooler is a large cooler. It's very insulated. It is extremely durable. You might want 2 people to help you move it. I've moved all mine by myself for the most part. You can drag it, but it's always better to have 2 people. There is an optional ozone. I would recommend anybody who's buying the Desert Plunge, you can get the ozone. Ozone is incredible with killing bacteria. It just helps keep your water clean and sanitary. They also have a pre-filter and then a 20 micron filter to catch any of those pieces of debris. As far as the chiller goes, they use an active aqua quarter horsepower chiller. Now I know you probably heard me say half horsepower, quarter horsepower, and full horsepower. So the horsepower, used to think that you needed more horsepower to chill the water faster.
I'll pilot.
Quarter horsepower chiller with the components Desert Plunge uses cools the water extremely fast, keeps the water cold simply. One of the things that they do to help
Good to go.
is the lid is insulated and it's sealed almost like a refrigerator. So there's latches that will be childproof, seals it completely, keeps bugs, debris,
free, everything out of the water, and you can have it inside or outside. Let's talk about the ownership experience. So you get a 1-year warranty, which is nice. There's not a lot about the components that can really go wrong. One of the things I like about Desert Plunge is it is kind of DIY looking, and the good news about that is if something was to go wrong, you can order the pump, the filter, the canister, the chiller. You can order almost every component that could potentially fail on Amazon and have it the next day, which is kind of nice. I have had 3 Desert Plunges, all from reviews and stuff. I haven't had one
Sniper up in the
big
tower.
fail with my Desert
Roger
Plunge.
that.
When you're thinking about the size of the Desert Plunge and how it can fit just a variety
Sniper,
of
top of the tower.
I think it's for anybody who maybe they're kind of in that same zone. They want something semi-permanent, but
He
they
makes
can also
5.
take it with
Spotted
them.
one with
This will fit through a
submachine
standard
guns.
doorway, which is nice, but it's also not the easiest thing to move or take with you. So if you're somebody with a residence where you want a cold plunge that looks great, you have a gym, a garage, something like that, this is a great cold plunge for you. It looks really cool too. It just looks gym worthy. So also I'd like to say that, I mean, if you're someone who's just looking for a great value, great product, durable, not going to fail you, good people behind it, I think the Desert Plunge is definitely one to put on the top of your consideration list.
So the next one is going to be the Ice Barrel 500 with their brand new chiller. This is going to come in at $5,098.99. As far as setup goes, it's super simple because the actual ice barrel itself is easy to move. It's only 85 pounds, but no water in it. And so you just put it in your desired location, and then put the chiller down, plug it in, and get it set up. It takes about 15 minutes to connect all the hoses, get the software going, and get all the water inside of the tub. And it's pretty straightforward. As far as the actual experience goes, this is definitely one of the better experiences for me personally because I'm a bit of a smarter guy. I always push my kids out there. And so this sitting posture and getting into it is really straightforward and it's really easy. And even David, who's 6 feet tall, he fits just fine. However, he did say it's a bit harder to dunk his head. So as far as like submerging yourself, it may not be the easiest for bigger people. As far as the unique features go, the standout thing here really is the chiller. It's an absolute beast, and it's a big upgrade from all the other chillers that I've seen used. It's definitely the most state-of-the-art piece of technology in the cold plunge industry, as far as I can tell. Everything is waterproof, as well as the internal components. I don't know how they did that, but it's super robust and durable, and when you see it, you touch it, you're like, it's not going anywhere, it's not going to break down, and the user experience is really incredible. And they even have this app where you can schedule when you want your plunge to be running, so it saves on electricity. It also gets down to the exact perfect temperature that you want it to be, and you can track your sessions and gamify the process and
Who's up for
see
stealing a
other people
helicopter?
who have ice
That
barrels
one's
with
packed
their
full of
chiller.
supplies
You
the
can
rebels
see
can
what they're
use.
doing,
Let's
how many
grab
times they've
it.
done it.
Moving to a
Film,
good site.
like,
Moving to a
rods,
better
do
position.
challenges. There's just a whole lot of functionality inside of the app that I haven't seen anywhere else. Also,
Ready
the
to
app
fire.
will notify you when it's time to change the filters, and it just lets you know, hey, I'm ready to be changed, which is really, really cool. With the warranty, you get a 30-day money-back guarantee, and then lifetime warranty on the tub, and a 1-year warranty on the chiller. And you have the option to buy an extended warranty on the chiller if you want. So as far as maintenance and potential issues, this specific cold plunge has a kit that you can buy to stabilize the water and to make sure that nothing's growing or that it's not getting really gross. It also has an internal pre-filter and 50 micron filter and an air filter. So according to the company, they actually don't need ozone and UV because of this stabilizer that comes in the kit. Who is this for and who is it not for? This cold plunge is definitely for the person who wants the best experience, and they're absolutely committed to making cold therapy a part of their life, or they're already doing cold therapy on a regular basis and they just want to improve the overall experience. And the reason being is because of the app functionality and because of the ease of getting in and actually just that standing, sitting position. I think it is overall one of the better experiences that you can have.
Roger that. Target marked.
Just also for the person who's ready to invest in a nice setup. This isn't the cheapest option. It's not the most expensive option, but it's definitely getting up there in terms of price. So this cold plunge is probably not for the super large. Like if you're a football player, basketball player, this might not be the best option for you. And on the other side of the fence, if you're a smaller person, this might be the perfect option.
There's a weapons
And if you're
case
like
over
me
here.
and you prefer that seated upright position, then this is definitely the cold plunge for you.
So next up, we're going to talk about the plunge. It's a white porcelain tub, reinforced underneath. If you've been in the cold plunging space for 2 years, you think of this. It was on Shark Tank. All that's great. It starts at $59.90. Now, what they did is they removed the old, really loud and not very efficient 1 horsepower chiller, and have 2 chiller options. So the price is going to change depending on which route you go. And one of the things that I like about plunge is they do white glove delivery. So when you order a plunge tub, they'll have a team come out there.
Moving to position. You need to get to a better position.
Where you want it. It sometimes costs a little extra depending on where you live, but it's a really cool feature. If you don't have that, setup is super easy. It's a tub. There's 2 connections on the back. You pick your chiller, set it down, and then you just connect 2 hoses and fill it up with water. It is heavy. This is something you will not be able to move by yourself. Definitely want 2 people. It's a beautiful white porcelain tub. I would not recommend dragging it. The cool thing about the look is like all the walls kind of taper in, so it has that really nice loungy look, which could be a good thing and a bad thing. It could be good because it's comfortable, but if you're shorter, like my wife, she struggles getting inside the plunge tub because with both sides being pivoted out or, slanted, she can't really plant her feet, so her feet will just kind of slide up. Some of the features will change. If you get the standard chiller, it's only cool to 39 degrees, which is still really cold. Has a 20 micron filter, which is nice, but it can be a little bit louder. Both chillers you can control with your app, which that is actually a really cool feature. The standard chiller will not turn on the light. That's the one thing that kind of is a bummer. The Pro
Yeah, I
chiller
found details on the
37
Nesby
degrees.
supply
It has
helicopter.
ozone, has
All
a
we have to
larger
do is hijack it and
filter.
deliver it to
It's
the
on
rebels.
top, so it's super
Simple, right?
easy to change that out. Has a pause feature, connects to your app, and it controls the light as well. It's super quiet. It's one of the quietest chillers that I've ever turned on. A little more money, but that's kind of the main difference. I had the opportunity to meet Ryan and Mike, and they're great people. They've been involved in the health and wellness community for a long time, so they're passionate about it. I hate to say it like this, but they have the resources to take care of customers. So that's one of the things I love. If there's ever been a problem, they've always stood behind their product, and that is nice. My experience in the plunge product itself and owning it, also very, very positive. It's always been a great experience for me. My water's been clean, and my water's been cold. There's 2 jets on opposite sides, so it creates like a very nice circulation of water. That's another reason it does a good job keeping the water nice and clean. And then in the lid, though it's not a plastic lid that fits on top, it's slanted down so water doesn't sit on top, and it does have some skirts that hang over the tub itself, so when it rains or if trees are above it or anything like that, nothing really can make its way into the tub itself. It comes with a 1-year warranty. You can purchase extended warranties and all that fun stuff. As far as the maintenance goes, super easy. The standard chiller is going to be a canister that kind of goes up and in, so some water might leak on the floor, which can be a little bit of a bummer, but that's kind of standard with most of the chillers. The Pro chiller is really cool. The actual filter goes out on top, so like you unscrew the filter and pull it up, so it holds all the water, holds everything in it. You replace the filter. It takes seconds to replace a filter in the Pro chiller. I like the Pro chiller. Pro. I know it's a little more money, but in the grand scheme of things, you get ozone, easier maintenance, you don't have to replace the filter as much. So to me, it's worth it. There's no components that built into the tub, so as long as you don't damage your tub, you shouldn't have any problems with your tub. The chillers are where there could be issues. The only real issues that I've heard of is shipping damage.
There's always another chopper out there somewhere,
They're
right?
60 pounds, and they come what's called parcel, so it's really like an Amazon delivery, right? They're carrying this heavy box and then just slamming it down. I know the guys at Plunge have done a lot of work trying to package it up to where shipping damage isn't going to happen, but it's typically the thing that can. Most of the Reddit posts and things you might ever see that are negative are usually due to shipping damage in my experience. So the Plunge tub is for anybody who wants that iconic, beautiful white porcelain tub that's a staple piece. When people walk outside and look at my Plunge tub, they're like, that is beautiful. It's a cold plunge that stands out. It's also not very portable, so you definitely want to have a semi-permanent residence because you're not going to be moving it around that much. I've moved mine in the back of a truck. It doesn't fit very well. It is also in that like mid to upper
Sniper,
price
top of the
category, so they're not the cheapest cold plunge out there, but if you're okay with that, then it's a great option. Next up is the Plunge All-In. Now, this is a beautiful plunge product, and it's almost identical. If you take the plunge tub with the Pro chiller and you smash it together, that's kind of the Plunge All-In, but there are some differences. Yes, it goes to 37. Yes, it has
Let me get into position. Copy that.
Control
Moving.
and all that. Super efficient, super quiet. They test this thing in a box, so 130 degree air, and it keeps the water at 37 degrees. It's very impressive. It's higher in the price category at $89.90. It does have a 1-year warranty, very similar to what we just talked about with the Plunge OG, but it's all built in, so you don't have any exposed extra chiller. The only cord is the power cord, and then the filter is on the top, and replacing that's super easy. I would say the maintenance on the Plunge All-In is the least of all the cold plunges that I have. It takes almost no maintenance. I haven't replaced the filter in 2 months, 3 months almost, and the water's still crystal clear, and that is the benefit of ozone. Ozone does a really good job of keeping your water nice and clean.
Is the only real main difference is that it's, instead of being separate, it's together?
Oh, no, there's a major difference. One major difference, my wife likes the Plunge All-In more than she likes the Plunge, because the regular Plunge, both walls are slanted, so she can't plant her feet when she's laying down. The Plunge All-In, the footwell is vertical, and then you're slanted on the back, so it's, I think, a more comfortable experience and a more controlled experience, where you can kind of squat into that wall if you want to go underwater and push yourself off, and there's a lot less slipping going on. Most everything from the Pro chiller to the Plunge XL is very identical. But the cool thing about the Plunge All-In is they do have that white glove delivery. When the guys came, they brought it, 2 guys moved it exactly where they wanted it. Everything functioned. It was really good. Like, the experience of that was the best delivery experience of any of the cold plunges I've ever reviewed. What's up, Dave Jr. here, and we are on the Rooftop Wellness Center. Today we're going to be looking at the Desert Plunge, Cold Plunge, and we're going to be using this as our vessel of learning to talk about ozone, which in the cold plunging community is probably one of the most misunderstood. What's up, guys? Dave Jr. here, and in today's video, we've got some exciting news. As you see behind me, this is the brand new Sun Home Saunas Cold Plunge Pro. They made a lot of upgrades, and in this video, we're going to go over all the upgrades, do a full. You know, sometimes as a content creator, we spend a lot of time curating videos, shooting B-roll, scripting out, making sure the data we're sharing is accurate, making sure the data is good. And sometimes as a content creator, you just want to talk. You just want to share with your audience, like, some of the things you're going through so they know, like, this has, one, been a crazy, crazy journey. For most of you know, it is crazy to see, like, how we have 50,000 plus subscribers on this channel. And I know some people have subscribed, like, there's a lot of metrics on YouTube, and I know some people have subscribed to my channel early on to either support me. Early on, I had some content around cars. I was in the automotive industry. Then I said, what's up, guys? Dave Jr. here. I wanted to make an updated video. Now, I have helped thousands of people build DIY cold plunges over the past 3 years since the very first DIY cold plunge I ever made, which had a submersible pump, a lot of components in the water.
Unidad bird approaching. Stay down.
I learned a lot about cold plunging. I've reviewed a ton of products since then. I wanted to make an updated video. The crazy thing is, a lot of the components that I used in that very first DIY, I would still say are up there at the tippy top of the reliability list today. But I do want to make an updated video where I show you exactly how I'm building this new setup, which looks kind of interesting, and we're going to go through each piece and each part in detail. This video is not going to show actually attaching it to a tub, but I'm going to explain exactly how you will attach it to any tub of your choice, whether it's an ice barrel, an inflatable, anything that's chiller ready, anything that already has the screws in the side so you can attach a chiller. This will work for any of them. And if you're a super handy person looking to build your very own tub using a Rubbermaid tub, galvanized trough, or anything like that, and all you'll have to do is get bulkheads, drill a quick hole wherever you want the two holes to go in, attach the bulkhead, and then this will attach right to the deck. Alright, so without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into it. So if you watched my latest DIY cold plunge, this was the actual connection that went into the ice barrel, is what I was using most of the time. Now, since then, there's a lot of options on the table, and a lot of them are less expensive, and that's what's cool about this. The entire kit that I'm going to go over with you today, including a quarter horsepower chiller and ozone in the line, is about $1,000 all in. So all you have to do is be able to screw a few components together, attach it to a tub, fill it up with water, plug it in, and you will have your own cold plunge for extremely cheap, is what I'm trying to say. So this was the original build. I just want to kind of go over it for a second. This piece right here went into the body. This little spigot here at the end, this was to drain the tubs. And what I realized after just a few water changes is that by having this just kind of like gravity fed, it took a while for the water to come out. So we made some upgrades there. And then this piece went into the filter and everything we're going to talk about today. So let's break this down, and I'm going to show you exactly how this whole thing is designed to work. I'm going to hold it together first, and then we'll go through it. So this piece right here, this actually unscrews. All of this is stainless steel now. So this piece right here is designed to go into a 3/4 inch female connection. So basically an ice barrel, the Frozen 400, most of the cold plunges have a 3/4 inch female connection to the tub itself. So I have this little extension here that goes onto this little elbow, and this elbow just turns everything. So theoretically the tub will be here, and this sits kind of snug against the tub so it's not sticking out and taking up a bunch of space with a bunch of extra unnecessary components that you could trip over. So this just has it stick out a little bit more. And the cool thing is if you do have one of the barrels that has a 1/2 inch connection, I have this in the kit that goes 3/4 inch female, so it'll go onto this, to a 1/2 inch male. That's what this is. The male goes in. Kind of, yeah, it's sexual, but it is what it is. So the 1/2 inch will go into a 1/2 inch connection. If you're not following along and you have any questions that this doesn't make sense to you throughout this at all, reach out to me on Instagram at DMossJr. You can send me a private message there or just chat with me in the comments or ask good questions in the comments of this video to help somebody else who might be going through this build. We'll answer the questions there, create a resource for a lot of people out there. So this connects to the tub, and that will connect to this little elbow. So this piece connects to this elbow, And then this elbow is just designed to turn the water from the tub into all of this, right? So right now we're just talking two pieces. That goes into this new upgrade. So this all goes into this new upgrade here. And this is a ball joint, a stainless steel ball joint. So obviously with the line going towards the water flow, that means it's open. Anytime you see a ball joint that's like that, that means the water flow is closed. It's how you burn out a pump, so we want to make sure that our water flow is always open, all the way open. So the water is going to go through this ball joint into our inline filter. Now, I know a lot of people like to upgrade and get micron filters. To me, it's a waste of money because you're not drinking the water. You don't need to get all the microns out. And if we have ozone in here and we're using hydrogen peroxide, we're good to go. So I have a ball joint here. It goes into your inline filter, which is a strainer, a mesh strainer, so it catches debris, it catches things from going into your pump. You have to have a pre-filter. Like, don't even play around with cold plungers that don't have a pre-filter. That's why pumps burn out. So I have a ball joint,
Hey, I spot
then
two
we have
riflemen.
the filter, then we have a ball joint. The reason I put one on both sides, so you can close both of these, preventing water from coming from the barrel or coming down the pipe here, so you can clean out your filter without getting water all over the floor. Now, there will be some water on the floor from when you take this canister out. There should be some water in there. One quick thing you could do, like just throwing this out there for the really smart people who are really quick, is you can theoretically close this ball joint, let the pump quickly suck out the rest of the water because it should force the water. It will create a little bit of a suction cup there. But quickly, it'll suck most of the water out of this and then unplug it. And then close this off, and that should prevent any water from being in that filter. Or just put a little plate underneath that can catch some of the water. Now, the way this is designed, it should sit off the ground a little bit. Now, a lot of people ask me, they're like, dude, like, should my filter be like this? Well, then there's no room. And actually, it really doesn't matter. I've had them all sorts of different ways, and it works. It catches the debris from going through. This doesn't have to completely fill up with water for it to be effective and for it to clean your water. At the end of the day, the water really is just going through this so that it can go through the pump and then through the chiller and everything else. So whatever it is catching is great. And you got to think, too, if the bottom of it starts to clog up with debris, well, then that's going to make the water go up a little bit higher. So don't worry too much about it. The only thing you definitely want to make sure is there is an arrow on this filter that shows the direction of the water flow. So make sure that the water is always flowing towards the pump if you're following this DIY. So ball joint, filter, ball joint. Then the ball joint screws into the pump. Now, the Danner pump is made out of a very solid plastic. I have used the Hydro Farm and a couple other pumps in the past, and they're very cheaply made, I realize. Like, if you screw this in a little too tight, it will crack, and it happens, unfortunately, a lot. A lot of people are reaching out to me like, dude, I cracked my pump, and it sucks. Like, I don't want you guys to follow along a DIY like this and then, like, have bad experiences. I want you to have good experience. So the Danner is by far the best pump I have used on the market. If there's a better one out there, let me know in the comments below. Anyway, water comes out of this entire thing through the filter, through both open ball joints, and then through the pump. The pump moves the water up and out. So this has a fan inside, and that fan is moving the water. It's sucking the water through the filter. It's sucking the water from the barrel or from the tub, and then it's shooting the water up this contraption. So this is where it gets a little different. This is where I made some changes. So at the top of the Danner pump is a 3/4 inch male connection, and where the water goes in is a 3/4 inch female. That's why we've got the ball joint going in, and then we have this little three-way on the top here. I put this three-way on the top, and then I attached this little hose spigot towards the outside here. I'll get to that in a second. Let me finish my thought here. So it has a three-way. At the top of the three-way is another ball joint. So in the kit, it doesn't allow me to put three, like the quantity. I do have it in the notes and stuff, but you will need 1, 2, 3 of these inline ball joints for this entire setup. Once again, the entire setup, including chiller and ozone generator, is $1,000. Right now, it's $1,004 is what I calculated on the Amazon kit.
Getting in position.
So three-way. You have the spigot coming out the side here. You're going to want to keep that closed, obviously, and then you have the ball joint up here. On top of the ball joint is a 3/4 inch female to a 3/4 inch barb. I hope you followed along. I hope this was super easy. There's really not a lot of crazy explaining to do. I do want to get into some actual like trial and error stuff that we're going to go through. But the explanation behind why all this is I put 2 ball joints on both sides of the filter, so that it makes changing and cleaning out the filter easier. Also, God forbid something happened to your filter, you lose an O-ring and you have to replace it. you don't have to like drain your whole tub. You can literally close off this ball joint, unscrew everything, take everything off, place it. It's easy to move things around. If you end up damaging your pump, you can close this ball joint, close this ball joint, replace your pump. Like it should be very, very user friendly and easy and long term. I have people that have followed my original DIY with a very similar setup over a year ago, have been running their system non-stop for over a year with this same little filter, without ozone, and with this same pump, and it still works. Like, I put this DIY up against a lot of the expensive cold plunges that I review. Now, it may not look as pretty, but it operates very, very well. Anyway, we've got all this. This is how it connects to the actual tub itself. Boom, boom. It's connected to me on the tub. Full of water, it's nice and cold. Water goes through all this, comes out here. If you do want to drain your water, keep all of this open, close this off, and open up this spigot. That'll force water out. Boom, that'll force water out so fast. You'll drain that tub so quick. And you can attach a hose to this and divert the water out. So if you have it in a gym, in a garage, or a place that you don't want to just completely flood, attach a hose here, get a short hose, divert it out, and that will drain your water out really, really fast. Now, when you do that, please keep a visual eye on it. Make sure that this isn't running for a long time. Your pump's not running for a long time without water. That's how you burn out a pump. Now, these are really hardy, but that is how you'll burn out a pump. So if you are draining it using your pump, make sure you keep an eye on it, especially once the water gets down to like the end. You don't want this to be running without water going through it, but it is a really cool touch. It will make draining your water. And then this whole setup just needs one little plug, and we'll plug this into a little 3-way outdoor extension cord that I have in the kit as well. That is the main driver behind the entire DIY. That is the main thing that's going to operate this entire setup. Now, there are some additional things that we need to talk about. One is I don't have the chiller here to show you exactly how to connect it, but I will tell you exactly what you need to do. Now, the other thing too is since we're using stainless steel, I highly recommend you use this plumber's tape. Most of these components come with some plumber's tape, so just wrap it twice around each of these fittings, screw it in, and you'll be good to go. Now let's quickly talk about how the water connects from this to the actual chiller. So in the kit, I have a 1/4 horsepower chiller, which is great for anything with insulation. If you're using the Frozen 400, a Grizzly cooler, any of the ice barrels with insulation, or even a lot of the inflatable tubs are insulated enough.
Sniper's got his target. Sniper's got a zero.
Shield the water down. You got to think, there's quite a lot of different mathematical equations that come down to figuring out what size chiller you need. The biggest thing is, where is your chiller going to be located? Does the tub have insulation, a ceiling lid? Is there going to be direct sunlight most of the day? Is it going to be in shade? Is it in a hot garage? There's a lot of variables, and I would just say this, like the 4 horsepower chiller should be enough with a 1,200 gallon per hour pump like that. There are bigger pumps you can get. I don't recommend, you don't necessarily need them unless you have a bigger body of water or a bigger chiller. And the smaller ones are okay, but I would recommend just go with the 1,200. It's been the tried and true pump of choice. So I think you'll be fine with a 1/4 horsepower chiller. If you do want to step up and get the 1/2 horsepower chiller, by all means do that. The 1/2 horsepower is just a little more powerful, so it should chill your water down a little faster. It should work a little less. Doesn't mean that it's going to completely shatter the 1/4 horsepower. It's not necessary in a lot of the settings that I've played around with. The 1/4 horsepower seems to be enough. But if you are skeptical, go ahead and just get the 1/2 horsepower chiller. And if you do have a tub that has no insulation and no lid, it's just a galvanized trough in the middle of the Arizona desert, you want the 1 horsepower chiller. And that's going to have some different components because you will need move. My brain is going all over the place. I hope I have not lost you. I will do a recap at the end of this video with just the important stuff of this kit, but I'm trying to answer the questions I get on a regular basis in this video too. So now, this is a bar. That's what this is called right here. This is 3/4 inch tubing. It's called aquaponic tubing. It's in the kit as well. The reason you're going to buy 10 feet of it is because I don't know what tub you're going to use. I don't know how far away you're going to have your chiller, but you are going to slide the tubing down to the bar. You can use one of these little clamps, and then think about how much tubing you need. Typically, the chiller will be like right here or on the side here, and then you just want to run the tubing. You don't need a live. Just run the tubing up, no kinks, and have it go into the chiller, into the inlet of the chiller. The chiller fittings with the active aqua chiller are 3/4 inch barb as well. So the tubing will literally come out of this, stick onto this barb, and then stick onto the chiller's barb as well. Use the clamps, hold it down. Make sure there are no kinks. That's the biggest thing here. You can even do like a loop-de-loop if you need to, just to prevent kinks, but make sure there are no kinks in your tubing. If there are kinks, that will prevent water flow, and that will potentially be a problem. So no kinks is the key. Then you will take the tubing and come from the out of the chiller, and then that will go into this contraption. Now this is also an upgrade. So if you're looking at this has a Venturi. This is ozone.
Take your fire.
Go into this. So there's an ozone generator. It's about the size of my phone, and you can either mount that to your tub or just leave it on the ground, and there will be a little clear tubing that will just connect right into that little set. You'll have the tubing go right into there, and it will send ozone into your cold plunge at the very end, because this connects to the hot hole of the ice barrel or where you're going to have the water going back in. Similar setup. This is replaceable, exchangeable, so if you do need a inch or bigger, you can. So this is the 3/4 inch to 3/4 inch, just extends it, gets it off of the tub, gives you a little bit more room to work with. Then you have the elbow going into this black Venturi line. All of this is in the kit. Then it connects to this bar. So we will have tubing that will come
I'm planning a
out
mine.
of
Give me a
the
sec.
chiller, and theoretically, depending on where you have it,
He's
it might be
dead.
just a quick straight shot
Who need
up
that
into
chopper?
here. You may
Stay
not
low.
need very much tubing at all. Tubing will go right onto this bar. This will connect to your tub, to your ice barrel, to whatever it is that you're using, and then you can connect your ozone in there, and that will inject ozone into the line at the very end, and it should be forcing water pretty fast. It should keep your water nice and clean and oxidized and all that great stuff. And that, my friends, is the DIY version 2. Now, in this video, I wanted to keep it short, and I wanted to really just talk about this part in detail. I needed to have this resource for people because not everybody's using an ice barrel, not everybody's using an inflatable, not everybody's using a frozen 400. Those are the 3 most frequently used items, but a lot of people do different things. People like to build their own DIYs, and they just need this. So I hope this resource is helpful for you. Go back and rewatch some of the areas if you have questions. If you have any detailed questions, ask down in the comments below. But I am going to do a quick close-up recap. This is just me verbally explaining how this all works, and now I'm going to go close-up. So if you need a little more detail, just lean in. Here we go. Let's go ahead and get started from the top. So this will connect into the tub. We're going to take this, now we're going to screw this in. Always recommend using plumber's tape. Definitely plumber's tape there. So now we have
back down. We got the fucking helo.
Now we're going to grab a mulch. I like to have the flow this way so I can kind of see the water is going that way, right? So this is going to go into the tub. Now we're going to connect our ball joint in there. Close this. Closed, like that.
Hang on, I'm coming.
This is going to go into our filter. So we're going to look for this little arrow here. See that arrow? Screw that
We got a
in.
fucking man down. Damn, that's gonna hurt in the morning.
Remember this filter, you can take this off, change the strainer out. It's that very sealable guide. Go right in there. Got that. Got that. Stuff I already wanted.
Copter, get down.
Now we're going to take another ball joint. Screw that out.
Chopper, hit the dirt.
Okay. Then this is going to go into the pump.
Back down. Just hold on to your shit. Back down.
Do the ball joint itself first. Strip. There we go. Well, just like that. So theoretically, that's how we should be looking at it. Well, that's how that should look. Now, we take our screw in. We're going to screw it to the top here.
El reporte indica que no hay signos del enemigo. Los rebeldes se retiraron.
Backside there. So we're going to screw it in here. Yeah, how do you know? And then the last thing is we're going to take another ball joint here to the top. There we go. There's always a spot where it gets hot.
Here's a flash crash for these hombres.
And then the last thing we will do is take this little bar and screw it to the top here. And that's theoretically how it should look. Perfect. That on one side. And then the tube, go right into the ball joint. Now, if you're using ozone, you're going to this to this on one side, and that goes into the barrel. This goes into the actual ozone. And we'll take this and screw it to the bottom. This, and pressure half inch. Not. This piece. So quick recap. You have your connection into your barrel right here. And this can be replaced with the 1/4 inch to a 3/4 inch. Every component we're using in this kit is 3/4 inch. Allows for really good water flow. And it's just really, really easy to access. That's the other thing too about having the right parts. Then we're gonna have an elbow. This elbow will go right into this ball joint. This ball joint we will keep open so the water can flow into our filter. This is the filter that I'm using. This is the filter that so many use, and it works really, really well. Now, real quick on the filter,
simulator.
When you do turn everything off and it's time to spray this out, I do want to go over maintenance of this filter real quick, because this is the #1 reason I get a DM from people on Instagram. So I want to just make sure that this is, you're going to turn everything off. You're going to close both of these ball joints. So make sure that both are pointing away. Then you'll unscrew this. Some water might pour out here. There is a little O-ring in here. You do not want to lose that. This is what you're going to take out and spray. It's a screen, a mesh screen, and it catches a lot of hair, a lot of grass, just a lot of floating debris, things that get in your pump when you don't even realize you get in there. So you're going to want to take this out, get it out, spray it out, clean it out where you can see
Han autorizado que convoquemos a las unidades de refuerzo que tenemos en los sectores vecinos para que los apoyen con esa amenaza. Van hacia allá.
Screw it in. It has its own little guides. Screw it in there nice and snug. And
chopper, down.
That's how you finish your filter. You don't have to buy replacement filters. You're not going to have to get a subscription, anything. Now we have our filter clean. We can open this back up, and plug everything back in, turn everything on. So when it comes time to change your water completely, you don't have to do any of that yet. I would recommend just closing off this ball joint that's at the top here. So this will be up. You'll open this one up, pointing it out, allowing the water to force out. So the pump itself will keep moving the water fast out of this spigot. You can attach a hose to that and run it off somewhere. By having this will make draining your barrel, draining your coke tank, cleaning water off of your basin very, very safe. Once that's done, close this off, open this back up, and fill your tub back up. Once it's full, or at least once the water is higher than this inlet, you can turn it back on and start chilling your water. So you have a three-way that connects to that, a ball joint, and then this is the bar at the very top. This is where the tubing will connect, and then the tubing will go into the chiller. And then from your chiller, this off to the side, from the chiller, you will connect the tubing into this bar. This bar connects to the ozone and cherry. There will be a little clear tube that sticks into this. That pumps ozone into your cold plunge. If you decide you want to use it, I recommend it, but you don't have to. If you don't want to use ozone at all, you can bypass this entire thing completely and just get a barb. I do have those as well. You know what? I'm going to put those in the kit as well for someone who doesn't want ozone. So you can just go into a barb. Basically, the hose, this right here, will come out on the chiller, and then you'll connect the hose, and then the hose will go into the barb, and the barb will connect into the barrel, the tub, whatever it is that you're using. But if you are using ozone, this is how the setup will go. It'll screw right into the barrel or the cold plunge of choice, hang down, have ozone, or not. That's how that is designed to work, and that's how it's supposed to look. So there you have it, my friends. That is the quick tutorial for the Dave Moss Jr. DIY Cold Plunge version 2. It's the first time I've really updated it since we started doing this a couple years ago. The DIY has worked for so many people. I felt like, why change it? But I have had some cool feedback from people over the years. They're like, dude, it'd be so cool if we added something.
Oh, fuck.
So we did that. Man, it'd be really cool.
Okay.